Good evening. I would like to call to order the Wilson School Board meeting for Monday, May 15th, 2023. Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mrs. Casper?
Here.
Dr. Kennedy?
Here.
Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mr. McCray?
Here.
Mr. Negrini?
Here.
Mr. Schneider?
Here.
Mrs. Cocker?
Here.
9 present, 0 absent.
Please stand for the posting of the colors.
Mark time. March. Left. Colors. Hold. Left. Base. Man, permission to post colors. Post colors. Present arms. Order arms.
Thank you, as always, to our JROTC. And tonight's first communication piece is actually recognition of the JROTC Senior Cadet Leadership Cyber Club update. So Sergeant Aman Gonzalez.
President of the Board, Superintendent, school board members, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak at your school board meeting tonight. Our vision for the Wilson Cybersecurity Club is to provide Wilson School District and JROTC cadets the best cybersecurity experience while enhancing Wilson students and JROTC cadets the opportunity to pursue cyber jobs within our community or military. This year, Wilson High School, with the sponsorship of Army JROTC, is being recognized for the first time as a Cyber Bronx Award winner for participation in the CyberStart American program. This is the partnership between JROTC and the SANS Foundation to promote, educate, and prepare high school students for a career in cybersecurity. I have been the lead coach and mentor for the Wilson Cyber Club this year, and our training glide path uses both CyberStart and the Cyber Patriot programs to educate and prepare students to explore career opportunities in cybersecurity, compete in Cyber Patriot, enlist in the military, and or pursue further education in cybersecurity. Our accomplishment for this school year includes 28 students at Wilson High School participating in CyberStart. Out of these, we had 4 students achieve Tier 1 status of 10,000 points or more, with 2 students achieving over 20,000 points. 20,000 points or more qualifies the students to apply for the National Cyber Scholarship Foundation. 2 students applied for the scholarship and were awarded the scholarship on May 10th. The individual Bronx Award is also awarded to each student after achieving 3,000 points. We had 9 total students achieve this award. They have also received a scholarship from the U.S. Army to attend the SANS Foundation course. In addition, Wilson High School was also awarded the School Bronx Award for enrolling 28 students and for our contribution to the cyber community. In addition, for the first time, we also kicked off Cyber Patriot last month for our inaugural year at Wilson High School by registering 5 Cyber Patriot teams. Currently, we have 13 active team members with one all-female team. Cyber Patriot is a national competitive cybersecurity competition. We have our first 6-year exhibition round on May 19th. In closing, this year has been very exciting for me as coach and mentor. We believe the best is yet to come with Cybersecurity Club. We will continue to grow the Cybersecurity Club next year. Our Cyber Patriot state rounds will begin in October of this year. Wilson JRTC, in partnership with the school district and the 2 Wilson School District middle schools, would like to participate, with your approval, create a cyber internship program to promote cyber education within the district. This program will use the Cyber Patriot National Youth Cyber Defense Program to allow cadets to mentor middle school students about the opportunities available in cybersecurity and creating leadership opportunities for the cadets. In addition, we would like to start our cybersecurity summer camp in the summer of 2024, when we combine our current progress along with continued support of the Wilson High School and District. I believe we are on track to meet our vision and goal for the program. We are very excited about the future of cybersecurity opportunities for the students at Wilson High School and the continued full support from both the Wilson School District and Army JRTC. I believe that the next few years, and with your support, we may have the opportunity to win at state finals and hopefully go to the National Cyber Patriot competition in Maryland. At this time, I would like to give special recognition to the following students for all their hard work this year. Although they could not all be here tonight, our Cyber Start Bronx awardees are Senior Alexandra Mateo, Junior Cadet George Dunda, Sophomore Cadet Molly Jefferson, Freshman Cadet Christian Haddendorf, Senior Cadet Emily Sugar, Freshman Cadet Aiden Haddendorf, Freshman Gabriel Hartman, Senior Cadet Joshua Zapata, Junior Cadet Addison Winchester, Freshman Chase Matseifer, and Freshman Darrell Cardenas. In addition to being a CyberStar Bronx Award winner, Chase Mastaifa and Darrell Cardenas, both freshmen, have been named a scholar by the National Cyber Scholarship Foundation. In recognition of their achievement, both Darrell and Chase have also earned an invitation to participate in the Cyber Foundation Academy, a multi-week online program based on nationally recognized SAMS Foundation training course and certification, valued at more than $3,000. They also have the opportunity to take the GFACT certification exam and possibly win an additional up to $9,000 scholarship and/or earn 3 college credits this summer. At this time, let's give them a hand of applause. Finally, I also would like to recognize our outgoing JRTC Cadet Senior Leadership. They are Cadet Logistic Officer Emily Estrella, Post. Cadet Command Sergeant Major Alexander Inhofe, Post. Cadet Executive Officer Elias Sauerburn, Post. Cadet Battalion Commander Dylan O'Brien, Post. As you know, they have helped with numerous community service events, with our service learning project, and many extracurricular activities for Wilson High School and our Wilson community. At this time, let's give them a hand of applause. Cadets, attention. Fallout. This concludes my time, and would like to open the floor for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Gonzalez. Does anybody from the board have any questions about the program?
I just find it ironic that every time my favorite presentations up here are the ones that make me feel the dumbest. Like, that is very impressive. I'm so impressed by their accomplishments, and this was just our first year of this.
Yes, ma'am, and I started halfway in the year
Yeah.
doing this.
I remember that curriculum committee meeting, and you were doing a fantastic job. The kids are doing a great job, and I can't wait to see what comes. And I do want to say thank you to the seniors for helping me every year figure out where I'm going on Meet the Teacher Night at the high school.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you. Do you have like a quick project or a summary of one of the most challenging or fun activities you guys do, or challenges you
So-
fight, if you will, out there?
So the Cyber Start program is very, very challenging because it's really a program where they have to go and solve it's kind of designed like a video game, and they have to solve these puzzles. But in actuality, what they're doing is they're learning about cyber forensics, and they're learning how to defend networks, and they don't sometimes realize it, but that's really what they're doing. And so to earn over 20,000 points, and they did it in all honesty, they did it in about 2 months. It's really incredible because that's very difficult. I mean, it's very challenging, very, very difficult to do in that kind of timeline. And if they continue moving forward and get 50,000 points, that's even more opportunity they'll have with scholarships and stuff like that. So it's just, not all were able to get to 20,000 because it's not an easy thing to do, but they're on track all of them are on track to try to eventually get there in the next 3 or 4 years. So
That's great, thank you. And I would imagine coming out of the program, 6 figures at least, cybersecurity is big business these days.
yes, it is.
Keep
I
it
think
up.
that's one of their big motivators. Anything else?
Just real quick, Sergeant Gonzalez, just want to thank you. I know as you were selecting the Wilson School District as your next career after retiring, this was something that you brought forth as an interest and a passion from the Army, and then committed to getting this up and running. So I just want to publicly thank you for following through on your commitment and making this program accessible for all students in the high school and middle school, it sounds like, as well. It's on the radar, so thank you.
Roger, my pleasure. The middle school, I think it's going to be, it's the same program, and it's designed to just open the door for them, to try to prepare them so that by the time they get here, they're ready to go and have that basic foundations. So I think it's a great opportunity for the cadets to go, and do that internship, and that's at the same time provide that opportunity at a lower level at the middle school, give that experience to them. So I'm planning to start that next year. So any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next, under communications, we have the Model Senate program.
Good evening. This year, we had the opportunity to participate in Senator Schwenk's Model Senate program. And Model Senate is a simulation of a Senate where the students act as senators and they discuss, amend, and try to pass bills. And the program consisted about 4 or 5 students from each district in the county, which was really cool because we got to interact and meet new students. And it had 3 sessions, 2 in Senator Schwenk's office in Muhlenberg and 1 at the state capitol in Harrisburg.
At the first session, we met the participants from the other schools. We elected a governor and were divided into our caucuses. We were also divided into our committees and reviewed the bills. Me and Danny were a part of the Health and Human Services Committee, whereas Avonlea and Owen were a part of the Judiciary Committee, and Caroline Long was a part of the Environmental Committee.
At the next session, we finalized which bills we were going to try and get passed. We learned that a key component of this is compromise, as we had to compromise with the other caucus and make amendments to the bill so they would also vote for it. And another big part about this second session is that we got to meet with real experts in the Berks community who helped us figure out what additions need to be added onto a bill, and allowed us to discuss and deliberate in a serious manner about the implications of specific bills, which was really interesting.
Our last session was in Harrisburg at the Capitol, and in the morning we got to learn how a press conference functions and how it works by helping Senator Schwenk present a bill that she's trying to pass, SB 393 and SB 394, which are education-focused bills. And we also got to sit on the Senate floor and listen in on a session. We heard some senators speak on the floor about current situations or concerns of theirs, as well as the bills that they're trying to pass.
And finally, we had our Model Senate floor session where each committee presented the bill and everyone had the opportunity to make comments, and we argued on the bills a little bit. It went back and forth until a compromise was reached and everyone got to vote on them.
Finally, we want to thank the board and the administration for this opportunity. It was really hands-on, informative, and a lot of fun. So, thank you.
Well, that looks like an amazing opportunity, and I think I would vote for any one of you to be senator, especially after the number of times we've seen you in front of this board for different activities. Very impressive. Our next presentation, our communication, is a presentation by Raymond James and Associates on our bond proceeds investments.
Good evening. That's a tough act to follow right there. So I know some of you on the Finance Committee have heard this before, so I'll try and give you the short version of what I think is a pretty exciting opportunity, all the way up until Mr. Negrini reminded me that the window for this opportunity closed, given that the federal government has not agreed on a debt ceiling upgrade, if you will. So as we go through the presentation, we'll discuss the implications of that. So if you want to flip to the next slide. So some brief background for those of you who have not been through the presentation. Wilson is one of probably a handful of school districts that we work with that fit the model or the variables that go into this opportunity. And so the variables that make you a candidate for this, if you remember, we issued $37.6 million of bonds in 2021 for the projects. At that time, you received bids. The bids came in over what your expectations were, and at that time, you decided to throw out the bids and pause, go back to the drawing board with the architect, if you will. But at the time, you borrowed at the bottom of the market. The second bullet point on the slide shows that the yield on that $37.6 million was 1.22%. So you really locked in a rate on that financing at the bottom of the market. So if you've been following what's happened with interest rates since that point in time, the Federal Reserve has raised rates over 500 basis points. So that allows your investments that are sitting in the construction fund to earn what we call positive arbitrage. Unfortunately, the Internal Revenue Service says that you're only allowed to earn up to 1.22%. Anything over 1.22% during what's called your 3-year temporary period, you have to rebate back to the federal government. Therein lies the opportunity for the district. And so because you have a 3-year opportunity at the time you issued the bonds, you said to both your bond attorneys and us that you had a reasonable expectation to spend the money in a 3-year period. Clearly, you're not going to meet that spend down test. So if you want to go to the next slide, there are several tests that school districts and other municipal borrowers need to meet before you can earn more than your 1.22% bond yield. And so clearly, you're not going to meet the 6-month expenditure test, the 18-month expenditure test, or the 24-month expenditure test. So those opportunities are kind of behind you and out the window. The other is if you're a small issuer, and in Pennsylvania, a small issuer is those folks who issue $15 million or less in a calendar year. Your issue was $37 million, so you don't meet the small issuer test. So the reason we're here to talk to you this evening is there's an opportunity for you to invest in what we call slugs, state and local government securities. There are 2 buckets of slugs. If you want, thank you for moving to the next slide. There are 2 different buckets that the federal government puts out there. There are taxable slugs that are used many times, and you've used them in the past for refinancings. Where you do a refinancing, you need to set monies aside in an escrow account. You purchase taxable, fixed-rate taxable instruments. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is tax-exempt state and local government securities, or slugs. So here is the loophole that we're going to work within, if you will. So the IRS says that if you don't meet the test, the small issuer test or the spend down test that we talked about on the last slide, if you invest those dollars not in taxable instruments but tax-exempt instruments, you can keep the arbitrage. So the plan was a couple of weeks ago that we would transition your investments that are sitting in taxable U.S. Treasuries, T-bills, T-notes, T-bonds, in that construction fund into tax-exempt slugs. Unfortunately, tax-exempt slugs, and taxable slugs are issued by the federal government if and only if they have borrowing capacity to offer you those investments. So literally, I think I made the presentation to the Finance Committee, and the next day, the federal government closed the slug window until they come to some resolution on the debt negotiations in Washington. So the hope is that sometime, depending on who you listen to, we're going to run out of money here in the first week of June. Those conversations can go on for several months. They can do short stopgap measures where the window wouldn't open. So what we're talking about this evening is putting you in a position to take advantage of the opportunity if and when the window opens in the next couple of months. So really what that means to you, and this is really found money, the first box at the top shows you your bond yield of 1.22%. The investment amount that's currently in the construction fund is roughly $43.3 million. And the most you could earn is $532,000 on those investments during that 3-year temporary period that I mentioned. Really, scenario 3 is what we're talking about, which is assuming today's rates, if you could invest in those tax-free state and local government securities, or slugs, that rate today is 4.03, tax exempt. We took a simple 24-month draw schedule, understanding that your plans for the Performing Arts Center are to spend the money over probably the next 2 years. You're going to have money left over that's going to spend or sit in that construction fund for probably a period longer than that 2-year period. So if we assume that what I will call conservative draw schedule for the next 2 years, you can earn about $1,760,000 in total. So 532 is the amount legally that you're able to earn on a taxable basis. So the $1.2 million that you see in scenario 3 is the amount over and above the bond yield that you're allowed to keep if you're able to invest in the tax-exempt securities that are issued by the federal government. So again, good news. Hopefully the window opens and you're able to put that money to work. We've talked about at the Finance Committee some of the logistics and the mechanics of making sure that by doing this, you haven't put yourself in any situation that's going to be detrimental to the district. Mr. Moravich and your bond counsel at Fox Rothschild has reviewed the legal side of the house. We have presented this to a number of different, what I will call national bond firms around the country, and they have all blessed this idea, if you will. So the other things we wanted to make sure that was, when your business manager was, if this happens and the investments move into the tax-exempt account, that the money will move freely as she needs it to pay requisitions for construction over the next 2 years. That process is going to happen exactly like it would in the current construction fund. So again, we've checked the box that from a logistics mechanics perspective, it's going to work the same as what Christine expected. At the end of the 5-year period, you're going to have a rebate calculation on the taxable investments the money you've earned there. Once the money moves into the tax-exempt investments, there will not be an arbitrage rebate calculation. So we want to make sure that there's a clean break between the taxable side of the house and the tax-exempt side of the house. So another part of the logistics. We were contemplating the Federal Reserve closing the window sometime after we took advantage of this, and so we wanted to make sure what happens if the window closed before you took advantage of the opportunity. So here we are. So as soon as the window opens, we'll be able to reinvest those dollars. If you want to switch ahead. We've talked about what slugs actually are, state and local government securities, so we can skip that slide. This was supposed to be the short version. The bottom interest rate chart really speaks to what has happened over the last 2 years since you've issued the debt. If you look at the lower right-hand corner of that chart, at the time you issued the bonds, you borrowed at 1.22%, and then interest rates went due north, far right-hand. So they went from literally zero, your opportunity to earn in those tax exempts when we borrowed the money was zero, and now it's close to 5%. Unfortunately, you can't keep it, and so this is where the opportunity is coming from. We can skip over that slide, and we talked about next action steps. So again, an exciting opportunity. Unfortunately, we have to wait until the window reopens. I think if it's the board's pleasure that we would put yourself and the board in a position to move forward and get the necessary paperwork ready so that if and when it opens, you can take advantage of it. So I'll pause there and answer any questions you might have. I apologize. I said that was the short version. It wasn't the short version.
I have a quick question. So
Yep.
let's say the window doesn't open. Like, is there a length of time where we are out of luck?
No, I think given your expectation how you're going to spend the money in that project fund, as I said, 2 years for the performing arts, and then you're going to have some money left over for other projects I think you're contemplating. The beauty, and one of the things that we checked with your bond counsel was, the first question was that 3-year temporary period. You're really only allowed to borrow, earn taxable, put the investments in a taxable portfolio for a 3-year period. There's a hard and fast cutoff date at the end of 3 years where the money either has to be spent or it has to be in slugs where you can continue to earn on a tax-exempt basis. So the real question is, at the moment, the rate's 4%. The next thing that's going to happen likely at the end of this year, early next year, is rates are likely to start heading back down, which will be not necessarily good for this equation, but over time, I think you're going to earn a significant amount of dollars in that project fund. But I know that you're also talking about other projects. If interest rates keep coming down, that'll be an opportunity for you to take advantage again of the favorable borrowing rates. So the hard and fast is the 3-year window, but if the money keeps sitting there, you can reinvest it.
Thank you.
So if we would invest it in the slugs, it would not be locked in at that 4%. It's variable rate.
It's a variable rate, changes every day. That's one of the beauties of Christine. If she needs it, she can pick up the phone and call the paying agent. The paying agent can make funds liquid and transfer monies to pay requisitions. But that rate, to your point, will go down as the Federal Reserve starts lowering rates. But again, I think we have a window here. The bogey is 1.22. We're way above the bogey at the moment. So anything you earn above 1.22 over the next 2 or 3 years is really icing on the cake. It's found money.
I would just add, I know you mentioned we obviously got a positive opinion from legal counsel. We also ran this by the auditors as well, and they
Correct.
also blessed this as well, too.
Yep, good point. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the board? All right.
Just what's not to like?
In my 30 years of doing this is the first, it's a perfect storm of folks who borrowed money, had projects for whatever reason that were delayed. You're not alone in that endeavor. And interest rates went up, and they weren't meeting any of those, either the spend down test or the small issuer exemption. So we tried to shoot holes in it too, and that's why we wanted to ask your council, other councils around the country. To answer the question, there is a very clear 2 sentences in both the IRS regs and the slug regs that tie the two together that allow you to do exactly what we're talking about. There's really no magic. It's pretty straightforward in both the regs. So, no, it's found money. It's a good opportunity. It's almost like a refinancing. When we come to you with an opportunity to save dollars, this is an opportunity that doesn't present itself very often. In my 30 years, it's never presented itself.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Next, under communications, we have our 2023-24 proposed final general fund budget presentation.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Before we begin the budget presentation, I want to take this time to thank several people. Basically, everyone involved since October of '22. We've been working on this budget. In particular, Dr. Trickett, thank you very much for your time and support through this process. The entire district leadership team, the building and department budget managers, the finance office staff, the finance committee, and the entire school board. It's a pleasure to work in a collaborative environment where we work towards our student success while maintaining our fiscal responsibility. So we'd like to begin the presentation with Dr. Trickett taking us through some slides regarding our student body.
Thank you, Mrs. Schlossman, and I appreciate the recognition of so many in this room, but I think it's you who carries the burden of preparing this budget, which is the result of countless hours and time and your entire team within the Finance Department for delivering this in this fashion today. So before we get into the numbers, and clearly budgets typically are full of numbers and millage rates and all the other pieces that go into what drives that financial side of our organization, again, I want to continue to bring us back to this. And as we work to develop this budget this year and everything that you're going to see, every dollar that was spent, we continue to go back to this and ask ourselves the question, are we getting closer to this or are we moving farther away? Remember, too, we developed strategic goals, and these strategic goals are here again on this large screen. They're before us, and they talk about all different facets of the organization. These were these 2025 type target statements. Specifically up here, we're talking about getting the best people to be on our Wilson School District team, to join our family, hiring, onboarding, retaining the best employees, keeping people here, creating a system where people feel that they want to make this a lifetime commitment. Focusing on strengthening the curriculum, instruction, assessment, and learning environment for kids. 6,400 students call our school home. And we want to make sure that those experiences are rich and that those experiences ultimately impact every single child in our school district every single day. A lot of the other pieces you see, the profile of the graduate is still work that's being completed in its first year. Safety and security we've touched on in our mid-year goal reports. Facilities improvement projects, we continue to move forward with our Phase 1 and are working to develop recommendations for Phase 2. And then ultimately fiscal responsibility. This idea of creating budgets that are sustainable over time, making sure that we're able to strengthen our position to achieve these goals, while also recognizing the burden that our budget ultimately places on the backs of local taxpayers. It's a balancing act. There's a lot of things that we would like to do, and there's a lot of things that we must do, and we as a leadership team need to make informed recommendations to our board so that they can vote intelligently about all matters that come before them. Here's an example of this work today. So as part of our look at next year, we're looking into the future, we need to understand where we've been. And I'm going to show a bunch of slides here in succession that talk about the changing school district, our changing family here in the Wilson community. This slide just shows enrollment growth, just from the lens of, are we growing, are we not? You know, we've talked about this a variety of times, and it has a lot of implementations. So you see some numbers here on the far right-hand side. Our enrollment has increased by 69 students, or 1.1% over the prior year. Since that October 1 data pool to May, we've added an additional 30 students. Down below, you'll see that on average over this time period, we've added roughly 76 students per year. That's a sign of a healthy school community, a sign of a healthy school district as well. So that's an important factor. We're a growing organization, not a shrinking organization. This slide, I think, represents that even to another degree when it takes a look at other Berks County schools. And again, not that we measure our successes or failures based solely on these school districts that are on the screen, but it's an important measure, as oftentimes those are conversations and comparisons made. We are growing by number of students at the fastest rate in Berks County, and you see that information on the right-hand side of this slide. The reason we feel this slide is important is it shows and helps maybe tell the story of maybe some challenges that we might have that some other school districts don't. Obviously, when we have more students, we need more resources, we need more teachers, we need to look at things and become more efficient, and that's part of the work of our leadership team. So again, steady growth on this chart as well. And then we dig into who are the students that come to our school, and we look at how our school district is shifting, understanding that our budget needs to reflect the programming that's needed to meet the needs of every kid every day. If we're not responsive to that and proactive to our planning, we're going to be in a position where we're not able to meet kids' needs. So this is specifically looking at kiddos who qualify for free and/or reduced lunch. And you're going to see the percentage, that's kind of a stark increase for me when I look at this slide. Steady increases, 32 up to 37%. But I'd also ask you to look at the students. 2,375 students in our school system, obviously more than a third of them who qualify at meeting these income standards. So we have to program differently. We need to make sure that we're agile enough to support kids as the role of the public school system continues to shift. Again, we look at some other groups of students, students who qualify for some type of special education services throughout our school district. We pride ourselves in the services that we provide our kids and our families, which has in many cases created a really strong reputation for our school district. But we're also seeing an increase in percentages and numbers here, going from 18% to roughly 20%. So 1 in 5 students in our organization. When we look at our students who are developing in the English language area, people who are learning to speak, read, write English as a language, we see that we're at 5%, going from 208 students in October of 2018 to 318 students October 1st, which just happens to be a data pool, so you'll see us use that number or that date pretty frequently. That's a large increase. And again, the challenges and supports that are needed to support a family who doesn't speak or understand English is significantly greater than those families that have English as their native language. So we're monitoring this, and this budget reflects an increase in allocation and resources to meet the needs of these students as well. We also look at our career programming, looking specifically here at Wilson. Obviously, we have programming that we've presented. Our teachers have done a nice job presenting in front of the board at a prior meeting. But we also have our BCTC, which is a critical component of our system. So part of the budget you'll see reflects the expenses that go into these different programs. BCTC is one of them, and it's an amazing program. We currently rank 4th in enrollment in the BCTC of the 16 participating school districts. Now, granted, we are a large school system, right? So that skews those numbers up. But we're proud of this enrollment. We're proud that we're increasing the membership. And the way the budget is created is based on averages. So this doesn't necessarily represent exactly the number of students. It's based on the budgetary projection that Mrs. Schlossman has in her report. And then the last piece here is charter school enrollment. And again, we've talked about this numerous times. It's another budgetary factor. It's not a negative. It's just something we need to plan for. So this chart shows how we're doing in regards to the number of students broken into our students who qualify for special education services and those who don't, and looking at a projection of where we believe we're going to be in the next fiscal year. We get to that granular level. Every single student is projected, and we come up with a dollar amount, which is proven out by the finance team, to associate with every single student, which is represented on the right-hand side. This chart, again, is brought forth before to our curriculum team as well as our finance team. It just represents another piece of this budget you're going to see, is this focus on these non-traditional programs at Wilson. Gone are the days where every single student will come to our middle schools, high schools, elementary school, and do the exact same program. We have many students that are participating successfully in non-traditional programs. This particular slide talks about the investment that we're currently making in our own virtual program to develop our courses using our curriculum taught by our teachers to try to create another opportunity for all students within the Wilson School District. Flexible environments, we believe, will be the future in public education, just like it is in college and in the workforce. So we are trying to proactively plan for this as opposed to reacting when those previous slide numbers get too high. So the result of a positive number here, in large part, is due to planning here. Building solid programming at Wilson, which prevents a lot of folks from going into other charter environments. So that talks a little bit about what you're going to see in this budget. Christine is going to now present the calendar as well as other pieces.
Thank you, Dr. Trickett. So as you can see from this summarized calendar, we started this budget process in November of '22. In October, in November, the school board voted to adopt the opt-out resolution to stay within the adjusted Act 1 index, which was produced by PDE of 5% or an increase of 1.43 mils. So from that time forward, the administration has reviewed this budget line by line and refined to do what Dr. Trickett was talking about, was to reach our goals but stay within our fiscal responsibility to do so. So tonight, we are here to present the proposed final budget for the board to vote on. Starting tomorrow, the details of that proposed final budget will be available on our district website on the PDE prescribed format. And that budget will sit for 20 days. It will be more than that. It will be 30 days plus for the June 19th board meeting in which the board would adopt a final budget. Changes can be made between tonight and June 19th as we see necessary based on our programming and our student needs and our staffing needs and possibly any funding changes. So we'll begin by talking about the funding sources available to the district. So it's broken down between local, state, federal, and other for a total of $127.5 million, which represents a $6.2 million increase or a 5.1% increase. Local revenues are set to increase over the current year by $4.6 million. What's feeding into that is a $0.83 mil increase or 2.9%, as well as other local revenues that we've seen trending upwards. So that includes our interest income, as was spoken about earlier, as well as earned income tax and some interim real estate taxes. Our state revenues are budgeted at $31.6 million or a $2.6 million increase. And what is leading into that is the Governor Shapiro's proposed budget. We have 50% incorporated into that. We have not heard any updates on the probability of his budget coming forward, so we have 50% in there, and as well as increased subsidies for our FICA and PSERS contributions are in there as well. Our federal funding line of $1.4 million is a $2 million decrease over the current year, and that has to do with the fact that our COVID/ESSER federal funding is now phasing out. So next year is a little less than $100,000, and that will be completely depleted. The other financing sources of $1.1 million, or an increase of $1 million, for the most part has to do with a change in the Governmental Accounting Standards Board's requirement for recognizing leases. And there will be an offset on the expenditure side for that as well. So as a percentage, our school district's funding sources are broken down according to this pie chart. Local is 73%, state 25%, federal 1%, and other 1%. Just to break down the real estate tax line item, you can see from this chart our real estate assessment growth for the past 5 years has been an average of 0.7%. Unfortunately, we only had a net increase of 0.1% projected for July 1, and that has to do with the fact that we had appeals working against our additional taxable assessment. So we actually realized a gross additional tax assessment of about 0.87%, but we also had the net of the appeals. So at the end of the day, we're looking at a 0.1% projected growth in taxable assessment. So this is a 10-year look at our millage history. As you can see on the right-hand side, we're calculating our 10-year average and our 5-year average. The blue line represents the actual millage increase over the years. The orange line represents the adjusted Act 1 index, which Wilson can go to based on our market value personal income aid ratio, and the base index is the red line. So you can see for the past 5 years and 10 years, our actual increases are lower than the average for the base and the adjusted Act 1 index. This shows that our proposed final for 23-24 fiscal year is set at 2.9%, which is below the base and the adjusted Act 1 index as well. Where will that place Wilson? Well, the other school districts are first going through the process that we're going through, so we don't have their proposed final numbers at this point. However, based on our estimates, we will still be in the bottom third in Berks County for millage rate. The average millage rate is 30.82 mils in the current year, and we ranked 14th out of the 18. The impact to homeowners on the .83 mil increase, you can see in the yellow column is the annual increase based on the assessed value that is listed there. Our median, which is the middle of the pack for our residential homestead owners, is $121,600 for an annual increase of $101 or a monthly increase of $8.41. Now on to our expenditure budget to support all of the student needs and staffing needs that we have here. We have a total of $132.7 million. And broken down into salaries and benefits, non-personnel, debt service, other financing uses, our phase-in for additional staffing and a transfer to capital reserve, and the budgetary reserve. So just to break this down slightly, the salaries and benefits include a 3.65% average increase for staff across the organization, 34% pension rate, an 8.75% health insurance premium increase. And we also added staffing to meet the needs that we realized, as Chris was talking about, in the needs of our student body. So how we funded that is we took a part of the partial use of our phase-in that we are budgeting for enrollment growth, and we funded those additional staffing costs with $1 million of that, as well as we eliminated certain vacant positions that had remained vacant year over year and did some restructuring as well. Our non-personnel includes increase in cost of utilities, supplies, services, and outside placement costs. And then the other financing uses increased as well by $0.9 million, which is related to the GASB entries that we talked about on the revenue side. The phase-in of additional staffing is still at $1.5 million, which is consistent with the prior year. And our budgetary reserve line is for unanticipated costs, which are covered by our assigned fund balance. So this is the breakdown of the categories that we just spoke of, with salaries and benefits representing 76%. Other non-personnel is 13%, debt service represents 8%, and the other three categories representing 1%. So our salaries and benefits over the past 10 years are shown graphically here. You can see that the blue bar is the salaries and the red bar is the benefits. And interestingly, that with the PSERS as part of our benefits, over the 10 years, our benefits have increased 96.4% when the staffing has increased 50%. The PSERS chart is shown here for the employer contribution rate. It actually was decreased this year by the PSERS Board of Trustees for the first time. As you can see there, 34%, but then it is projected to go up by 2030 at 38.35%. This is a graph showing our special education costs and the funding shares related to that. Special education is one of our top expenses, and you can see here that the portion for which the state and federal government supports those costs have actually gone down over the last 5 years as a percentage of the total, going from 21% in 2014-15 to 19% in this current budget, where over the same time period, our costs have increased $10.5 million, or 66%, and only $1.6 million of that has been an increase in the state and federal side of it. So the local revenue has to support the difference. This is a chart of our debt. We have less than 10 years to pay that down for $100.3 million. Overall spending in comparison to other Berks County schools, this graph shows that the blue line, Wilson School District, spends less per student overall compared to the other Berks County school districts on average over the last 6 out of 10 years. And this is a calculation of total general fund expenditures divided by the average daily membership in those schools. So putting that all together, we have total revenues of $127.5 million, total expenditures of $132.7 million, for an overall deficit of $5.2 million. $1 million of that is covered by our assigned fund balance because that represents the contingency line, which hopefully we don't have to use and we haven't used in over a decade. The use of the PSERS committed fund balance will cover the difference. That fund balance has been set aside, is there for future use for budget times as this, and that will be what will cover the difference for a balanced budget. How our fund balances look at this point. In the current year, we've experienced unprecedented local growth in our earned income tax and interest income lines, as well as interim real estate taxes. So we're looking at a surplus of $3.3 million in the current year. If the board so chooses to keep that in the general fund, we will end this year with $33 million overall. So the deficit, which we had shown in the slide before, going against the PSERS committed fund balance, then would lead us to a $28.8 million fund balance at the end of next June. That represents 11 weeks of budgeted expenditures overall. The unassigned fund balance, the line right above the dark line there of $7.7 million, is relates to a board policy that unassigned fund balance cannot dip below 3% of the subsequent year's expenditures. Our Finance Committee set a goal of 5% several years ago, and this budget and projection represents that we were within the policy and also meeting the goal. Going forward from this point, the Finance Committee has also looked at years out from this, and we will be still within that policy and meeting that goal within the next 4 years. So what's next? This budget is on the board agenda for adoption as proposed final, knowing that changes can still be made until June 19th. We will have a Finance Committee meeting on June 5th to review any of those changes. And beyond that point, as we always look forward, we don't budget in a silo 1 year at a time. We look 4 and 5 years ahead. And in that time frame, we're going to look at our enrollment trends, assess our student needs, and evaluate our programming and analyze our staffing needs. And obviously, also as well as we're looking to continuously improve our facilities. So that ends the presentation. Are there any questions?
I just want to comment on behalf of the Finance Committee, our appreciation for Christine and her entire office, the amount of hours that's put in, the demands of staff as you're working with various different budgets and various different buildings with various different needs is a challenge. And we greatly appreciate all the time that you and your staff put into this, so thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Mrs. Schlossman?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Maravich, we have two individuals for public participation on agenda items.
Pursuant to the Sunshine Law, Robert's Rules, and Board Policy, the following are the rules of public participation. Individuals attending the meeting are expected to conduct themselves in a responsible and respectful manner that does not disrupt the meeting. Public comment is not question and answer, but instead an opportunity to offer comment on matters that are or may come before the board. In particular, personnel or student matters may not be commented on, even if the employee, parent, or student is speaking because of confidentiality laws. As it relates to questions, the superintendent may assign an administrator or may speak directly to the speaker himself after the meeting to attempt to answer any questions raised by the speaker. The board respectfully requests that you direct your comments to the board as a whole. As it's the board as a whole, it will be required to vote on any future matters. Clapping, calling out, or cheering is not permitted, nor are conversations in the audience. Individuals may not approach the board tables. Individuals should make their comments from the speaker's lectern. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, and I will provide a 1-minute warning. Any persons making any threats of violence may be removed from the meeting or cited by local police. These expectations are outlined in Board Policy 903, which is on board docs within the website.
Thank you, Mr. Maravich. First, we have Jennifer Denny, proposed 23-24 budget.
Thank you. I want to thank Mrs. Schlossman for that presentation. She has an amazing ability to take a very complex subject and actually make it seem understandable. $123 million is a lot of money. I think it's something more than most people can understand. And I expect over the next month, while this budget is being looked at, that people will pull bits and pieces from that presentation to use it to whatever end that they want to present. And I think there's a lot of considerations that go into that budget that maybe aren't always known to the average taxpayer. And 3 minutes is not enough time to comment on all of them, but there are a few that I think are worth discussing. One is that that budget has to be created in the context of potentially not knowing revenue sources in the coming year, which is huge. The case law, the William Penn School District has found that our funding source is unconstitutional. And though our legislature never works very quickly, I think the last idea was within the next year or two that they're going to have to entirely revamp the funding system. And right now we get about 75% of our funding from the local source, about 25% from the state, not quite, but that's about what it is. And that could potentially change. It could potentially flip-flop, which means that Wilson taxpayers will have no say or very little say over where their money goes other than to pay the bonds, that it's going to come from the state. And that could really impact the budget going forward because it's going to be out of our hands. And so when you look at it and you sit there and say there's a multi-million-dollar surplus, that seems like a lot of money, but 11 weeks of operating costs, when you're not sure what our budget is going to be in a year or 2 years or 3 years, really isn't that much money. For the average citizen, the recommendation of financial advisors is that you have 6 months in surplus in your bank account. I know most Americans don't have it, but that's the recommendation. We have 11 weeks right now. So I think that that is really a relatively conservative number, though the dollar amounts seem like a lot. The other thing that I think needs to be discussed is cyber schools. The figure that got shown up there is that we currently save $1 million by having the Wilson Virtual Academy. Thank you. Under the law, a person can choose where to send their school for cyber school right now. And if they choose to send it to a private school, a private cyber school, Wilson taxpayers have to pay for that. There is currently a bill pending in Harrisburg. Senator Schwank, who we saw earlier, introduced it. It's before Senator Argel in the Education Committee, another local senator, that says that if the school has a virtual academy like Wilson does, taxpayers don't have to pay for the choice to send this student to another one. I think that's an important thing that taxpayers need to be aware of because otherwise they're paying for what their neighbors may choose to do for their kid. The third thing, which I can't even get into in the remaining time, is Pacers. The fact that it has been grandfathered out as of 2019 doesn't mean that we don't have to budget that in for the next 30 years. It's an unfunded mandate where there's not enough money to cover what needs to be covered. We owe it to our teachers to cover it, but we are going to be reliant upon the state to provide that money. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Chastity Santiago, budget.
Hello, everyone. Well, I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach here in my speech. I'm talking to the teachers tonight and everyone else in this room. Teachers, they do heroic work. I graduated from here. There's some phenomenal teachers in this district. They make a difference in the world, but they confront a lot of challenges. They have to adapt their curricula to different learning styles. They have to manage, shifting education policies. They juggle administrative work, all the while now with the social ills that are showing up in their classrooms. It's a big load for them. So what happens when teachers who are already contend with so much also experience unsupportive work environments? Addressing teacher burnout means more than responding to it after the fact. And it requires building solutions into the budget that specifically cares for eliminating the causes of teacher burnout, which, Dr. Trickett, I did see, that is your plan to go in and do those things. I just wanted to kind of reiterate the fact that data doesn't lie. The district does have a record of phenomenal teachers. In 2015, Mr. Hart, Mr. Martin, and Mr. Negrini were the only existing board members at that time. Under their leadership, our amazing teachers did what they do best. They teach. Out of the 18 public school districts in Berks County, we were ranked #1 for English and math proficiency. Today, we're 10 and 12. We were ranked 2 for science proficiency. Today, we're #5. We were ranked 1 for grade 3 reading. Today, we're 12. And ranked 2 for 7th grade math. Today, we're 10. Today, our proficiency rate is dropping at a higher rate than both the county and state average. English is dropping over 20%, where PA dropped 9% and the county dropped 13%. Science dropped 18%. The state dropped 11%, county dropped 14%. Some have suggested it's related to the socioeconomic shift, but our low-income demographic shift was an increase of 7%, which is in line with the county shift of 5%. We've all been told that, board decisions and policy are data-driven, so it is my sincere hope that the budget cares for the following: that the teacher climate survey results, the teachers scored all 3 categories below favorable or agreeable thresholds. The school safety dashboard has 146 repeat offenders for 406 incidents. Those are disruptions to classrooms. The data from the Department of Education lists a salary of $130,000 for a food service manager when neighboring districts are at $60,000. And that's straight from their data files. These issues are not problems of individual teachers, but they are organizational issues. It's the school's policies and practices that determine the educator's workload and the culture of the school. Secondly, this community needs to do better. They need to be a part of this by putting end to the noise and partisan turmoil that is deteriorating teacher working conditions. I want to say thank you to all the teachers in our district for everything they do.
Thank you for your comments. That's the end of public participation on agenda items. The board did meet in executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss personnel matters. Moving on to approval of minutes. I'd like to request to approve the minutes of the school board meeting held on May 1st, 2023.
So moved.
Mr. Martin, thank you. Do we have a second?
Schneider, second.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any comments? Okay, roll call, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Roll call for the next 2. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, 2.2, request approval of the proposed final budget for 23-24 in the amount of $132,700,000 at the real estate millage rate of 29.49 mils, as per the resolution to the permanent minutes. Looking for a motion for 2.2.
So moved, Negrini.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Do we have a second?
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any comments? Mr. Martin?
Yes. Last year, as co-chair of the Finance Committee with Jay, we looked at the budget, and then when the governor approved it, we had substantial extra cash from the government of Pennsylvania. And we asked, and the CFO agreed that we would apply that to the reduction of the taxes for this year. I think that's a great policy, and I think we should look forward to that this year, too. So if the revenues exceed what's in the budget, which is 50% of what the governor requested, that difference, once again, should be used to offset future taxes next year. That's it.
Thank you for the suggestion, Mr. Martin. Any other comments?
Along those lines, it would just be nice if Harrisburg passed a timely budget, and then we wouldn't be in this position year in and year out. I wish that could be held accountable, so that would make our jobs a little bit easier. But that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Any other comments? Dr. Kennedy?
I'd like to thank everybody because this is really difficult to do, and I think the majority of the budget is right on point, but there are a few concerns I have. I know things can change, but there's no guarantee that they will change, so I'm going to be a no vote on this.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Any other comments? Okay, having a motion in a second, roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
No.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no.
2.3, request to approve and authorize the investment of the 2021 general obligation bond proceeds in demand deposit state and local government series slugs when such slugs become available on the market, and to further authorize the school district's CFO with the advice and assistance of the district's legal and financial advisors to, in one or more transactions, have the custodial bank transfer all or some of those proceeds into the slugs when determined by the CFO, and to be appropriate and to delegate the authority to the CFO to execute any documents to effectuate all steps necessary to complete such transactions. Say that 10 times fast. Okay. Looking for a motion for 2.3.
So moving to Greenie.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Looking for a second.
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Treasurer's report, Mr. McCray.
Yes, request approval of the treasurer's report, investment reports, general capital funds, financial reports as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
So moved.
Mr. Martin, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Payment of bills, Mr. Negrini.
Motion to approve the payment of bills from the following: General Fund, $3,804,664.11. From Capital Reserve, $41,683.29. From the 2019 A Construction Fund, $10,921. And from the 2021 C Construction Fund, $157,575.11 as attached.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. We have a motion for 4.1. Do we have a second?
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Abstain.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 abstain, 0 no.
Financial reports, Mr. Negrini.
Motion to approve the financial reports for April of 2023, the cafeteria and child care and activity accounts from Southern, West, and Senior High as attached.
We have a motion for 5.1. Do we have a second?
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Superintendent's report, Dr. Trickett.
Thank you, President Cocker. I present tonight all items inclusive of my report, 6.1 through 6.7. Tonight, which is typical in the month of May, we are bringing quite a few new people onto our team here, as well as losing some really quality people who will be pursuing other career choices in other areas. So specifically, Lynn, under retirements, working 18 years in the school district here at Wilson is an accomplishment, definitely impacted a lot of lives here at the high school, and just want to thank her for her commitment to our kids and our school and our programs. Quite a few folks listed under end of service. Again, thank you to all of them in a variety of different capacities and roles for all that they've done to add value. Professional hires, we have a couple of new professional hires here with us today. I believe Megan is here, and Tori, if you could stand, please. Megan and Tori are both on the agenda tonight under professional hires, and will be joining our team here after the school year, starting at the earliest July 1. So welcome to Wilson. I have not met both of you. I've talked to one of you a couple times on the phone, but we're very glad you're here, so thank you. We also have quite a few change in services, or change in status, rather, on the agenda tonight. And again, a variety of different roles that are open. Oftentimes, we post internally and externally. So tonight, I know that there's quite a few folks here. Jen is here, Matt is here, Steve is here. Anyone else that's doing a change in role, they're all on this agenda as well as many others. So again, thank you for stepping into these new roles within the organization and helping us grow using your skills and your experience here at Wilson. So a large list there, some additional professional hires, and just always thanking our substitutes. This is a need we have in our school district, and I'm just really always happy to see additional folks wanting to substitute in our schools. So that's my report.
Thank you, Dr. Trickett. Looking for a motion to approve superintendent items 6.1 through 6.7 as presented.
Could we pull 6.3 by itself, please?
Sure.
Thanks.
So looking for a motion to approve 6.1 through 6.2.
So moved.
Looking for a second.
Schneider, second.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion on 6.1 and 6.2? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. McGreeny?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
No.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no.
6.3, looking for a motion to approve change in status items.
So moved.
Mr. Martin, thank you. Do we have a second?
Negrini, second.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to maybe give the opportunity for the administration to kind of talk a little bit about some of the positions. I have a fundamental difference of opinion. I'm sure these positions are needed, but with regard to the changes with the positions up there for, I guess, the supervisor of teaching and learning, we have extremely qualified people up there, some of the best in our district, all three of them, Matt Campbell, one of them, Steve Rhodes, and Jennifer Joyner, all great folks within our district. I'm very concerned that we're pulling these great people from their roles and moving them into roles that I, again, have a fundamental difference of opinion for needing. I've seen many cases and instances in the school district where teachers get together in the summertime or outside, whether it's in service days, and talk about curriculum and shape the curriculum for our school, and it works. I think just like we pay coaches or give stipends, we should be looking more into that, where teachers that are actually in the classroom are providing the curriculum guidance for a school district. For one, you would save with benefits and PSERs and additional staffing. You can use the staffing that we have in our district already. So I think this is kind of where, there's been a lot of emails floating around just with, and I want to present the administration with an opportunity to talk about this idea of maybe the administration getting too top-heavy. With these, because now as we replace 3 people that are going to these positions, now we need new principals and assistant principals in the district. So I'm voting no on this just because I think we can work this with teachers in general, and I'd love to get behind that idea. But again, we as a board, chose Dr. Trickett to lead the district and staff the district as appropriate. It's just, again, I have a fundamental difference of opinion. I completely respect the decision of the administration to need these positions, but I will be voting no for this. Thank you.
Would you like Dr. Trickett to?
I would love for you to respond. Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Unless you just want me to leave that out there.
No, thank you, Mr. Case. And Mr. Case has expressed, we've had conversations about this previously as well. So when we look at it, it's hard to discuss this and present this without all of the slides that went into this work. But in essence, the way I'll best provide my response will be that when I came on board in this role, I guess it was about March or April of last year, and then subsequently worked with our team to develop the goals that we have. I took that approach very seriously and basically had our team go through exercises where they had to define excellence in their division, in their role that we ultimately, all of us have to impact the lives of kids. So part of this budget, which was presented in prior committee meetings before tonight, including HR committee, curriculum committee, we detailed the specifics of that staffing increase. So Mrs. Schlossman presented the increase in X millions, I think roughly $2 million total in the budget, perhaps. So we added some positions. Inclusive in there is an extra school psychologist, a special ed lead teacher, which is exactly, I believe, what Mr. Case is talking about, a specialist in that field to support some of our low-incidence classrooms. We're adding 4 elementary teachers. We're adding an EL teacher. We're adding 4 middle school math teachers. We're adding a high school career-focused counselor, a counselor who can work with our students to ensure that our Act 158 pathways are done from a state mandate perspective, but more importantly, that kids are on the right path to careers. Looking to add a bilingual translator and community liaison to support our families who do not speak English, and a variety of other positions. But included in that proposal was the addition of 2 what I'll call supervisory positions. One of them is a supervisor of teaching and learning, and specifically, I will say that the middle level is the new one. We've had 2. We had a secondary, essentially, and an elementary supervisor. One of those supervisors was actually here this afternoon with her child. The other one is retiring after, I believe, 36 years of service to the district. So we wanted to revitalize that a little, and specifically from how this person will support kids, essentially is this. Our principals are busy. They're busy running their schools. They're busy managing the lives of the kids that are, evolving throughout the school day. In some situations, we have elementary schools with 600 students, and they have 1 principal. And in addition, we could have 100 employees. And there's a lot of things that happen in that day. Typically, their day starts at 5 o'clock, trying to fill sub positions, vacancies throughout the school day. I'm not exaggerating. That's typically when the day starts. It typically ends around 5 if you have no evening events. So this position specifically helps the principals, the department leads, the instructional coaches ensure that we're meeting the needs of our teachers so that they can meet the needs of kids. So when you look at our teaching, you have to start with standards. What are we being asked to teach? It has to start there. We don't have an option. That is what we are charged to do. So this person's responsibility, specifically at the different levels, kind of elementary, that middle level, and the high school level, will be to be the liaison instructionally to ensure that we have solid programs in place so that our teachers can deliver them with fidelity. That is their goal. The ideology or the thinking that principals can do everything that they're doing and leading those facets of the organization is just not something that I believe is the case currently at Wilson. So it's an additional layer of support. The second supervisor that's being created really goes back to some comments we had on virtual instruction. This person's job is going to be to ensure that our in-house virtual programming and all non-traditional programs is the best in the region. Not just enough to get us through where we need to be, but it's the exemplary program for our kids. So that if our families feel that a virtual option is the right option for them, we want it to be excellent. Currently, I am not satisfied. I believe a lot of folks are not satisfied with the virtual programming across the Commonwealth. And our goal and our vision is to build that program here. Our kids, as I mentioned before, our curriculum taught by our teachers. So this person will help be the architect of that and continue the work that Dr. Cachufo, Mr. Dillon, and some others have started. So those are the 2 new supervisory level positions that are included currently in the budget and are on change of status tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Schreckett. Dr. Kennedy?
I just want to point out that you don't, I mean, with this board at least, you've never had to sell adding new teachers. As in the 5 years that we've been on this board, you've never asked us ever to add a new teacher, and we've never said no. I mean, as far as my recollection. I understand the concern about the overworked principals. I have friends that are principals. I work with principals. I get that. My biggest problem is that those 3 people there are amazing. And I'm going to say what I said when Dr. Stout got hired for her job. Whitfield is a handful. It's the biggest school. It houses all of the special needs like that many of the other schools don't have. This is, by my count, and I'm trying to do it in my head, their 8th principal since 2008. That's a lot, and it's a big school, and it's a big, big learning curve. And knowing what I know about how that school works and what a wonderful community it is, I can't see them getting their feet pulled out from under them constantly. And I love that our well, on one hand, I love that our administration has such a way to climb up the ladder. I feel like whoever goes in that position next has to be a strong, high-quality, intelligent, thoughtful person that's going to fit into that school for the next 20 years. Not for the next 2 years, not the next 4 years, for the next 20 years. Because while they've had some obviously fabulous people, those fabulous people have been just, it's like a revolving door at that school.
Yeah, leadership turnover, I will always agree with that, is a major issue in public education. You look across the Commonwealth and across the nation, I mean, speaking about superintendents, I think our average shelf life is about 2.9 years. So I think holistically as a society, we also need to reflect on some of those pieces. My job obviously is to try to propose to you what I believe is best for this community. But I will say and reiterate, Dr. Kennedy, that leadership turnover is a major priority. And perhaps, our folks that are here today who are all experienced leaders and principals, I guess I'll just say that, they applied for these positions, they earned the respect and recommendation from our team, and just wanted to make sure that, everyone gets an opportunity to follow their path is also important to me. I was one of those people that was plucked from the high school, and I think I was like, absolutely not. I love to be in the high school principal. But the district saw me in a different role. So I respect that, and I agree with you. We need to figure that piece out, and that's part of the reason that we're recommending deans of students being in the budget, who are previously titled TOSAs, to provide some additional support to our principals as well.
Any other discussion from the board on 6.3? Okay, having a motion and a second, roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
No.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
No.
Mr. Martin?
No.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
6 yes, 3 no.
Okay, the remainder of the items, 6.4 through 6.7, looking for a motion.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Could we pull 6.6 out separately, please?
Sure. So 6.4 through 6.5 and 6.7. Okay, 6.4 through 6.7, excluding 6.6. Trying to make this meeting as long as possible. Looking for a motion for those 3 items.
So moved.
Thank you for the motion. Looking for a second.
Schneider, second.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any comments on those 3 items? Mr. Negrini?
Just very brief. I just want to acknowledge that former student government president and board representative Gianni Clark being hired as a substitute special education instructional assistant. I know that she's working towards her education degree, and we would love to have her come back here to share what she's learned at Penn State. So just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Any other comments?
I think I screwed up last time. I thought we were taking 6.1, 6.2, 6.3. So I meant to vote yes last time.
Okay, sorry about the numbering issue.
John, procedurally, how do we amend that?
We're okay not revoting, okay. All right, so just for items 6.4, 6.5, and 6.7, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
No.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCry?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no.
And finally, 6.6, substitute teachers. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Martin, thank you. Second. Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. McCry?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Abstain?
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 abstain. Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 abstain.
On to ratification and approval of the following field trips. 7.1, request permission to approve a trip for approximately 30 students in technology education to Greece and Italy from June 10th, 2024 to June 19th, 2024. Cost of students is approximately $4,459. Students will be chaperoned by Mr. David Dunkelberger, Mrs. Alexandria Dunkelberger, and Mr. Ryan Denny's and Mrs. Nikki Denny's. Looking for a motion for 7.1.
So moved.
Mr. Martin, thank you. Dr. Kennedy, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Consent items, request to accept with gratitude the following donations: $132.31 for the Green Valley Conservation Club from Isaacs at Spring Ridge LLC. Looking for a motion to accept 8.1.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Second, Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, if everyone recalls, I believe that is the group about the turtles. So that, I'm assuming, is a fundraiser that they held at Isaacs. All right, motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Human Resources, 9.1, request approval of the renewal for Delta Dental for the 23-24 school year. 9.2, request to authorize superintendent to make employment commitments to qualified applicants for the purpose of filling vacancies that occur after the May 15th, 2023 board meeting, with action to be ratified by the school board at the next official meeting. 9.3, request approval to the revised job descriptions for custodial floater, first and second shift, and special education facilitator. Looking for a motion for human resource items 9.1 through 9.3. Mr. Hart, thank you. Do we have a second?
Casper?
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCry?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
On to student services. 10.1, request permission to renew a contract with Capstone Academy for one special education student for 2023-24 regular school year services at a cost of $92,422.80 for the school year beginning 9/5/23 and ending 6/13/24. 10.2, request permission to enter into a service agreement with Team Care Behavioral Health LLC to provide home-based behavioral health services for 2 students at a cost not to exceed $75 per hour for behavioral health technician and not to exceed $100 per hour for behavioral consultant services, not to exceed $150 per hour for board-certified behavioral analysts. Appointments will range from 10 to 15 hours per week and include travel time for the clinician pending solicitor review and approval. 10.3, request permission to enter into a service agreement with Navigate 360 LLC for an online software subscription providing training tools and threat assessment protocol platform beginning 7/1/23 and ending 6/30/26 for an annual subscription fee of $31,008.80 annually with a one-time implementation fee of $1,920 pending solicitor review and approval. 10.4, Request approval of an affiliation agreement with Albright College to provide an educational experience for student teachers enrolled in Albright College Education Certification beginning November 11th, 2022 and ending November 11th, 2027, as attached. 10.5, request permission to enroll one foreign exchange student for the 2023-24 school year. 10.6, request approval of a resolution approving and adopting a student discipline waiver and consent agreement dated May 12th, 2023. Looking for a motion to approve student services items 10.1 through 10.6.
Mrs. Cucker, can we
Yes.
vote separately on 10.2?
Yes. So looking for a motion to approve student services items 10.1 as well as 10.3 through 10.6.
Casper?
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Do we have a second? Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Any discussion on all items except for 10.2? Okay, roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
And 10.2, looking for a motion for 10.2. Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Do we have a second?
Casper?
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion? Mr.
Yes.
Negrini?
My concern with this, although in terms of the overall budget, not significant, I do believe that this would establish a precedent moving forward for additional IEP services provided in-home when ultimately the responsibility of the district is for those services to take place within the confines of the building. This is a situation where these are students ultimately with these particular services, that would, I believe, call for potential additional requests for those home-based services that can certainly lead to additional costs to the district. So again, I'm just pointing out, the potential for precedent here for the approval of this particular service.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Other comments on 10.2?
I was just wondering if Dr. Trickett or Dr. Hoffer could speak to Mr. Negrini's point.
Dr. Hofford?
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Negrini, I agree. We try as much as possible to keep the services that we provide within the school building and during the school day, but there are situations that rise to the level of need, especially when we're dealing with students who have school avoidant behavior, significant truancy issues, and difficulty getting out of the house to get to school, that we are required as part of the IEP to attempt to provide some services in order to engage the child and bring them back into the building so that we can provide the academic program there. And that's specifically what this contract is targeting. Any other questions?
Thank you, Dr. Hoffert. Oh,
Is there a length term?
Yeah, this is not a full school year, a contract. This is a fee-for-service contract. So essentially, we would program through the IEP the amount of time that we would be providing the service with the goal of bringing the student back into the building. Well, I mean, it's based on the achievement of the goal.
thank you, Dr. Hoffert.
Just to add to that, Gordon Hudak from Reading, back in the day, he would go to someone's house and just knock on their door and say, "Get to school."
Okay, having a motion and a second for 10.2. Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
No.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
No.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
No.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
6 yes, 3 no.
Under Technology and Media, 11.1, request approval of a 60-month renewal for Cisco Umbrella web filtering product for the district at a cost of $8,542 billed annually. 11.2, request permission to set up an account with Deals to list and sell surplus equipment, individual listings to be board approved before posting. Looking for a motion to approve technology and media items 11.1 and 11.2 as presented.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second? Mr. Martin, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Operations, 12.1, request permission to purchase district custodial supplies through the BCIU bid for July 1st, 2023 to March 28th, 2024 is attached. 12.2, request to approve a contract for Shiloh Hills Elementary Field Day on March 24th, 2023 with Bounce House Rentals of Lancaster. Total cost to Shiloh Hills HSA will be $1,047.03. 12.3, request to approve a contract for Cornwall Terrace Field Day on May 25th, 2023 with Bounce House Rentals of Lancaster. Total cost of Cornwall Terrace account will be $1,700.22, or $1,722.76. 12.4, request to approve a contract with West Middle School for West Middle School Carnival on May 31st, 2023 with E5 Mobile of King of Prussia. Total cost to the West Middle School Student Council will be $899.94. 12.5, request to approve a contract for West Middle School Carnival on May 31st, 2023 with Over the Moon Event Rentals. The cost will be, to the Student Council, will be $339.20. And 12.6, request to approve a contract for West Middle School Carnival on May 31st, 2023 with Big Bright Bounces. Cost to the Student Council will be $7,210. Looking for a motion to approve operations items 12.1 through 12.6.
Casper.
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Do we have a second?
Schneider.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under Finances, 13.1, request approval of the BCIU 2023-24 rates for tax bill services per the attached rate schedule. 13.2, request approval to award the following bids: elementary and secondary art supplies, elementary and secondary music equipment and supplies, secondary technology supplies, and fall athletics supplies. 13.3, request approval of the budget transfers dated April 13th, 2023 through May 10th, 2023 as attached. Looking for a motion to approve finance items 13.1 through 13.3.
So moved, Negrini.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Do we have a second? Mr. Martin, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
14.1, request approval of the 2023-24 Wilson Preschool Childcare tuition-based budget. Looking for a motion for 14.1. Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Mrs. Casper? Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
And under extracurricular, 15.1, request approval of the attached affiliation agreement with Lebanon Valley College for placement of one or more LVC athletic training program students for an unpaid internship position with the district as attached. Looking for motion for 15.1.
So moved.
Mr. Martin, thank you. Looking for a second. Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Under miscellaneous, the enrollment report as of May 11th, 2023 is 6,419, which is a decrease of 10 from the previous report on April 13th, 2023. On to committee reports, BCTC and Student Services, Mrs. Casper.
Yes, thank you, President Cocker. I do not have a report for BCTC, but for Student Services, we met on Wednesday, May 3rd at 4 p.m. Under mental health and counseling, officially, there are no more mental health nights remaining this school year, but we are already discussing next year's topics. So if parents and their families are interested, if they missed one this year or any of the topics that they were still interested in referencing, the recordings are available in the parent workshop portal. Some of the new topics for next year include parenting through anxiety and depression, positive body image and positive language, understanding loneliness in children, and screen time video games. Just a reminder that there is also one-on-one parent coaching available through parentguidance.org, and it's available year-round and in Espanol. The services are also available to all staff. We will continue to monitor how folks engage with these services to determine how to continue offering them. We also got an update on the personalized learning paths and the PLA pilot. This program is going well, and we received positive feedback from the teachers involved, mainly that they are able to create standard-based and project-based programs. We have also been contacted by Alvernia about sending students to provide additional tutoring and mentoring services there. A report will be provided at the end of the pilot. Contact has been made with other schools looking to send students on a tuition-based model. As far as our equity and student experience, our school culture survey data discussion recap from our Equity Council meeting on March 15th revealed the top themes that came up from the survey being emotional regulation, conflict resolution, and the definition of support between students and staff, which was a lively meeting and discussion. Finally, a discussion is underway about a full-time emotional support classroom at Berkshire Heights, which I think could provide some continuity for our youngest kiddos as they enter our elementary schools with their integration of social-emotional learning. So that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Casper. BCIU and Curriculum Committee, Dr. Kennedy.
Thank you. The BCIU nor the Curriculum Committee has met since our last meeting, so I have no report for either. Thank you.
Thank you. Berks EIT, Mrs. Schlossman. Thank you. Curriculum Committee, the Curriculum Extracurricular Committee met last Monday, May 8th at noon. We reviewed rental fee categories for different groups that use our spaces in the district. Currently, we have category A, B, and C based on whether they're nonprofit or not, whether they include like our Lincoln Park and Wilson Junior Soccer groups. Obviously, they're free of charge because they're our feeder programs and they're all of our students. So we just looked at possibly redefining those categories, but that would require a board review as it is tied to policy 707. So possibly look for that as more work is done in our committee. Also, an interesting opportunity between Wilson Swimming and Lincoln Park Pool to kind of have a share of lifeguards and have them float between the two as needed over the summer due to a lack of viable lifeguards in our district, which would also give the lifeguards more hours as they would cover our pool at certain times. As well as this time of year is really busy with concerts and events at our schools. So I just wanted to encourage my fellow board members to get out and possibly see one of the concerts. I know a lot of us will be there for our own children, but in case you aren't, check the schedule on our website and try and make it to one of the events. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by the level of talent in our students. That is my report. On to Facilities Committee, Mr. Case.
Thank you. The Facilities Committee has not met since our last board meeting or two, but I will say a couple things. The operations team is gearing up for summer projects, which include but are not limited to the MAC turf replacement, the lower house HVAC doors and hallway painting, various playground projects at Cornwall Terrace, Whitfield, Spring Ridge, and Shiloh Hills, and our district is planning for the locations and the install of the grant-supplied AED units, which are, by the way, all-weather, so they need electric for the small heaters that go inside, so they can be used all year round. Also, our district is hoping to do a considerable amount of painting district-wide over the summer, along with summer cleaning and getting ready for graduation with the fabulous fireworks display. Looking forward to that. Thank you. The next meeting is June 12th at 4:30.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Finance Committee, Mr. Negrini?
No report.
Thank you. Legislative, Mr. Schneider?
Everything that I would have mentioned has been mentioned already, like the lack of a budget, and so I have no report.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Human Resources, Mr. Hart?
No report.
Public Relations, Mrs. Troutman?
Good evening. Most of the items celebrating our students are going to be covered by Ms. Radosh, so I'm going to just say one thing, and that this is actually our last board meeting before the class of 2023 graduates. So I wanted to share with our entire community that we will once again be celebrating our graduating class with a community parade and fireworks display. Mr. Case. The parade will follow the same route as last year and will begin at 6 p.m. on Friday, June 2nd, and we do have a rain date of June 3rd. So again, the best part of graduation is seeing our amazing community come out in full force to celebrate our graduates. So I am looking forward to it again this year. And actually, our PTO is selling graduation parade packets, complete with pom-poms and cowbells. So like we take everything to the next level when it comes to graduation here at Wilson. So cannot wait, so excited. All of our graduates will get tickets to the event, but it will also be live streamed for the community to watch. The actual graduation celebration ceremony will be live streamed. And then following the ceremony, we'll be having that fireworks display at approximately 9:15 p.m. And we do want to thank the community members who have already donated to the Wilson Education Foundation, who provides monies back to the district to help cover the costs of that display. We do have a custom website that's been developed for the class of 2023 events, and you can find that link on the homepage of the high school website. It's very comprehensive, so please check it out. And we are super excited to celebrate this amazing class of 2023. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Troutman. Education Foundation, Mr. Case.
Yes, a little bit of a report today from the Education Foundation. Just wanted to mention a couple things here. Please join us for the 10th Annual Wilson Community Night at the Fiden Phils this year. Wilson Community Night at the Fiden Phils, they're against the Harrisburg Senators. The game date is Thursday, May 25th at 6:45 p.m. Plaza gates open at 6 p.m. There's a deck picnic buffet that runs from 5 to 8:30. There's fireworks after the game. There's free tickets that are being distributed by teachers to hardworking students in their classroom this year. The tickets are also on sale now for the entire Wilson community. Information went out in the Blitz and is included on the WEF website and social media pages. There's also a QR code on the flyer posted right here this evening. It's going to be out there. It's also going to be right here. If anyone wants to come up and take a look at it. And the discounted tickets are provided each year thanks to our Wilson Community Night sponsors. Sponsorship opportunities are still available. Have your name and logo on the jumbo screen at the game. Get to throw out the first pitch and get 100 general admission tickets to distribute. So if anyone's interested in any of that, please contact Molly Mack if interested, and hope to see you all there at the Wilson Community Day. The 2023 Wilson graduation sponsorships, thank you to all the businesses and individuals who generously donated. We have raised over $5,500 supporting our senior class in this year's graduation festivities. All donors will be listed in the graduation program and included on the WEF website. And lastly, the Wilson Education Foundation, the May Board of Directors meeting, our last meeting of the school year, will be held this Friday, May 19th at 7:30 a.m. here in the admin building. If you'd like to volunteer on a committee or are interested in learning more about the Wilson Education Foundation, please visit our website or contact Molly Mack. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Technology Committee, Mr. McCray.
No report.
And before I move on to student outreach, I would like to recognize our student representative to the Wilson School Board, Danny Radosh, who will be graduating on June 2nd. Therefore, tonight is her last meeting and her last student outreach report. Danny has been a tremendous addition to our school board this past year, where she has served as a representative to her peers. In addition to her role as student representative, Danny served Wilson as the president of student government, operations captain for Minithon, a member of the girls' tennis team, and a cast member in the Wilson Theater Company's production of Into the Woods, which was a giant role. I would like to, great job. She had also been busy serving as an intern with Sadomsky and Negrini criminal defense attorneys. Danny will be attending Tulane University in New Orleans this fall, where she will major in communications and psychology with a pre-law track. On behalf of the Wilson School Board and the Wilson District Administration, I would like to thank you for your service this past year, and we all wish you the best in your future endeavors. So with that, yeah. So, student outreach, Ms. Danny Radosh.
Thank you. The Model United Nations Club recently competed at the Kutztown University Model UN Conference, where they had to discuss and plan for potential crises. And congrats to Nathan Stein, who received his committee's Best Delegate Award. And 5 Wilson students, including Kofi Anoki, Toby Bucher, Sammy Eisenhofer, Addie Nyack, and Jenny Zhao recently competed in the state level of the governor's STEM competition, and their project was a school bus stop sign extension, which won the Survivability Award and an honorable mention, so congrats. And May 5th was the annual Wilson Games, which is our Special Olympics, so congrats to all of our athletes and buddies who worked hard during the events. This year, Wilson West hosted the annual Reading Olympics, where over 200 students from 11 school districts in Berks County participated. Congratulations to our high school girls track team for winning county champs. And Friday night was the award ceremony for the JROTC cadets, so congratulations. This Friday and Saturday is the Runways Club's annual fashion show. This year it is titled Supernova, and all the outfits were designed by students, so come check it out in the auditorium at 7 both nights. And as it's my last meeting, I wanted to thank the board for allowing me to sit at these meetings with you. I've learned so much, and I see firsthand how dedicated you all are and how much work you put into it and all the volunteering that you do to benefit our students. And I also want to thank the administration and staff, in particular Dr. Trickett, Mrs. Troutman, Dr. Weber, Mr. Bender, and Ms. Marconi for supporting me and granting me these opportunities and for providing such a valuable education to me and my fellow students. So thank you so much.
I would just add, as an alumnus of Tulane University, you're in for quite an amazing 4 years in New Orleans, but just pace yourself at Mardi Gras.
Yes, so without further ado, I would like to introduce our new student representative, Bryce Heilman. He's going to do a great job, and I'm so excited for him to have this experience. So, yay, Bryce!
Thank you very much, Ms. Radosh. And I would like to also point out the photos that are added every time you have your report. That's a stamp of Danny. So you set the bar pretty high for the next person to take over. So thank you very much for your service. Ms. Moravich, do you have your own update?
I'm sorry, no report, just, I guess, public participation.
We do have public participation on non-agenda items.
Okay, I'll try to truncate this a little bit. Individuals attending this meeting are expected to conduct themselves in a responsible, respectful manner that does not disrupt the meeting. Public comment is not question and answer, but instead an opportunity to offer comments on matters that are or may come before the board. As it relates to questions, the superintendent may assign an administrator or he himself may speak to the speaker asking the questions after the meeting. The board respectfully requests that you make your comments to the board as a body, as it is the board as a body that will need to vote on future matters. Clapping, calling out, or cheering is not permitted, nor are conversations in the audience. Individuals should make their comments from the lectern. Comments are 3 minutes. I provide the 1-minute warning. Any threats of violence may be removed, but the person may be removed from the meeting and cited by local police. These expectations are outlined in Board Policy 903, which is embedded on the website in Board Docs.
Thank you, Mr. Maravich. First, we have Jody and Lee Radosh. Topic is thank you.
Good evening. We are Lee and Jody Radosh, Danny's parents. Since this is her last board meeting, we wanted to publicly thank you all for allowing her to sit among you and having this amazing experience. It's bittersweet for us because we've been part of the Wilson family for 15 years. Several of you know that our oldest, Rachel, graduated 3 years ago, and now Danny is graduating. So we have been reflecting on our time at Wilson. Sitting among the board is just one of the amazing opportunities that students in this district can partake in. Over the years, we have seen students excel in Wilson's outstanding academics, athletics, arts, clubs, and even community service opportunities. We know this just doesn't happen. It takes a team of dedicated teachers, counselors, and staff who continuously support the children and are excellent role models.
We have witnessed many of them work late nights, early mornings, and even weekends to provide unique opportunities. Wilson has a lot of signature programs. One of them is the internship program, which provides hands-on experiential learning and helps students identify a possible career choice. Both our girls participated. In fact, when Rachel got to college, she was surprised that other students did not have this opportunity in their high schools. She was also very prepared for college. She's an elementary education major, and many of her classmates have never set foot in a classroom before. And yet in high school, Rachel had 2 separate student teaching experiences and already knew how to write a lesson plan. As a college professor, I can tell you that Wilson provides a strong foundation like this across the board in all subjects. I've especially seen this with writing and research in the AP classes such as seminar, research, literature, and language.
We know this all starts from the top, so we want to thank the administration, Drs. Trickett and Stout, Mrs. Troutman, all the principals, and of course the school board. You put the well-being and best interests of the students as the top priority. We can't imagine a better place to have raised our children, and we simply want to thank you and wish you all much continued success. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Jennifer Denny, Civility.
One of the things that I've spoken about before is my concern over the increasing lack of civility within our community. In fact, when I spoke at the last meeting, I discussed that the behavioral baseline in our society has devolved, and few places is that lack of civility more obvious than in school board meetings. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. For the past 2 years, I've watched this board, the female members in particular, be treated in a way that would make people ashamed in any other setting. Yet in this microcosm, certain community members seem to deem that incivility acceptable. When I decided to run for school board, it was not a decision that I made easily or lightly. I knew I would become a target as soon as I announced. But because I had a lot of support, a strong platform, and a fairly thick skin, I thought I was prepared for whatever would come, right? It's just a race for the school board. How bad could it be? Wow, was I wrong. What I never expected was that a nameless, faceless coward would use a fake Facebook account to make threats towards one of my children in an admitted attempt to ruin my campaign. I couldn't imagine that other candidates would threaten lawsuits against community members in an effort to weaponize the legal system in order to chill public discourse. I didn't foresee literally tens of thousands of dollars being spent on a school board race under the guise of he who has the most signs wins. Folks, let's put this in perspective. This is a race for school board director, quite literally the most local type of election there is. Yes, the outcome is very important. But none of us are going to get the codes to the nuclear weapons or even have the ability to pass any laws. And even if we did, no election is worth threatening a child just to get at their parent. I actually don't believe what we're seeing here is really representative of the entire Wilson community. So I ask our community, what kind of culture do you want for your children? Do you see our district as having a strong foundation to build upon like I do? or a problem to be fixed, as others do? What kind of leaders do you want? Ones that have platforms based on fear, partial talking points, and financial influence, or ones based on actual knowledge and forward thinking? At the polls tomorrow, I hope our community will choose the vision I have for Wilson. Choose teachers, choose kindness, choose books, choose experience, choose to build up, not to tear down. Choose Wilson parents, choose fiscally responsible growth, choose to support all children, choose parental responsibility along with parental rights, choose progress. If that's what you value, if that's what you choose, then vote Denny, Hart, Casper, McCree, and Snyder. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. R.G. Hansen, School Safety.
Good evening. I'd like to talk a little bit about school safety. At these meetings, we have listened to community members speak about things that they hear are going on in the schools. I have 2 bulldogs in 2 different buildings, so I too hear a lot of things firsthand. With my child's permission, I will be sharing a story about safety. My child is part of the LGBTQ community and has been bullied quite a bit for it. The bullying was crude, sexually vulgar, and occasionally violent in nature. Sorry. There were also 2 incidents where my child was pushed, one resulting in damaged personal property. I went through the proper channels to address it, and the school administration did a wonderful job handling it, and things have gotten better. But I ask, how does a child who have these experiences learn? Neurologically, they are not accessing the part of their brain required for learning when in a state of fight, flight, or freeze. To be able to function and learn, children need to believe that they are safe. My child's queerness is not the result of an emotional disturbance or any kind of distress, but those experiences have caused them some distress. While I have heard some school board members here comment on LGBT youth, I don't actually know how some feel, and that's okay, because they are not on social media actively liking and supporting anti-trans and anti-LGBTQ content. Any opinions on this matter certainly should never impact school board policies, and I'm glad it hasn't thus far here. I shudder to think what would happen if that changed. Central Bucks School District has implemented a discriminatory policy, and it has cost the taxpayers about $1 million in legal fees. My child felt brave enough and safe enough to report the bullying because of caring staff, because of staff that have inclusive content in their classrooms. No one is trying to turn straight cis kids into LGBTQ kids. We're trying to make sure that LGBTQ kids survive to turn into LGBTQ adults. To quote the author, James Baldwin, we can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and the denial of my humanity. That's why I'll be voting for Schneider, Hart, Casper, McCree, and Jennifer Denny. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Chastity Santiago, Community Climate.
So I'm going to follow with the kind of current theme that's going on here. On 4/17 of this year, I approached this podium to talk about civil discourse and how we as a community cannot arbitrarily dismiss or attack another one's perspective. This is the type of noise and partisan turmoil I was referring to earlier tonight in my speech that impacts the classroom environments for teachers, which is why I was absolutely shook to see a member of this board using language that only served to deepen the divide in this community. There have been countless meetings where this board has mentioned the phrase words matter, and they do, freezing and isolating and polarizing community members by labeling them matters, exploiting the parents' fears in this community about a recent active shooter hoax that matters. A character assassination that makes members of this community look like they are part of a dangerous, scary, and insane fringe group matters. Words are powerful. They can inspire but can also be influential motivation to do harm. And the words used will only contribute to a climate of mistrust and hostility that exists today in this community, and it shouldn't. I just think about how you would feel if somebody read those words and reacted out of fear using that language as their ammunition to harm a member of this community. I don't care who the words are about. It could be about somebody I don't agree with. No one in this community deserves that. This board member had a chance to be the leader we want our students to become, instead of indulging in language that invites and normalizes hate. So, the primary job of leaders today at every level involves recognizing the unity of interest, the unity of people and processes, and taking the steps to reduce barriers that create friction, both real and imaginary. They create a common purpose, and they simply respond to people, they listen, they don't exploit popular sentiments, they instill great nobility in their followers, and they don't manipulate their baser instincts. Winning an election does not make you a leader. Using your words and actions to uplift and unite everyone in one community makes you a leader. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Brian Shavinsky, election tomorrow.
Good evening. Graduation season is upon us. I was reading different commencement speeches and came across one from Mr. Fred Rogers to Dartmouth and wanted to share part of that. You don't ever have to do anything sensational for people to love you. When I say, it's you I like, I'm talking about that part of you that knows that life is far more than anything you can ever see or hear or touch. That deep part of you that allows you to stand for those things without which humans cannot survive. Love that conquers hate, peace that rises triumphant over war, and justice that proves more powerful than greed. So in all that you do, in all your life, I wish you the strength and grace to make those choices, which will allow you and your neighbor to become the best of whoever you are. We are on the eve of voting in the primary for 5 seats on the school board. We should support candidates who use their strength and grace to help all students become the best version of themselves. We should all vote tomorrow for Jennifer Denny, Guadalupe Casper, Bernard McCree, Bob Schneider, #VoteBob, and Brad Hart. Others may use manufactured outrage, intimidation, fear, or weaponizing law into silencing voices in our community. Our community deserves better. I will use the remainder of my 3 minutes to demonstrate what conversations within our community may sound like if others are elected to the board.
One minute.
It'll be silence. Make sure you vote tomorrow, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Tammy Keener, polls.
Good evening. I'm not going to say much tonight. I'm just going to give you a bunch of statistics and polls. Although I didn't like some of the comments tonight. Poll results for Microsoft. Microsoft should work for most of you. 91% of people out of 1.5 million people that participated in the poll feel that the U.S. education system is on a major decline. Shocking. In a separate poll, only 17% believed in public schools. 29% believe in charter schools as an alternate, with the rest being divided between homeschooling, cyberschooling, and no opinion for about 440,000 people. 89% of the 662,000 people that were polled state over the last 5 years, people are less civil in public life. 70% polled stated that social media is negative and cannot be trusted. 33% of 663,000 people polled stated that they are now afraid to speak their mind in public. What a sad thing. I fought for their freedoms. That's sad. 61% of 764,000 polled stated that the country is headed in the wrong direction. I know that. Common sense tells you that. While only 26% of the country is said we're headed in the right direction, and 145 people had no opinion. 88% of 2 million people polled stated that they have concern for the economy and their jobs. No brainer. 90% of 410,000 people polled are concerned about the high level of inflation. 86% of the people polled were concerned with increased government regulations. When priorities like gender or race are introduced as a metric of hiring, assignment, or advancement, the foundations of hiring that the best person are put in jeopardy, and the performance-based competition is sacrificed, and the emphasis on qualifications becomes secondary. Today, Governor Ron DeSantis signed into the law in the state of Florida that anyone teaching social emotional learning, critical race theory, equity, comprehensive sex education, changing of values, beliefs, and mindset, gender identity, and intersexuality and welcoming classrooms will not any longer get federal funding. So I'm hoping that our Congress here can do the same. And also, not to scare you, but John Durham is finally out with his final report. President Trump did nothing wrong. We got treason on our hands.
Thank you for your comments. That's the end of public participation on non-agenda items. Opening the floor to board conversation. Any comments from the board? Okay, I just have one little thing that earlier I mentioned as part of my extracurricular committee report. There are a lot of events going on this time of year. I know as parents it feels like everything's really busy. So I just wanted to take a minute to thank all of the teachers that work extra hours to put those things into place, like our art shows, our art and discovery shows, our band, orchestra, and chorus performance. So thank you to all of our teachers that are putting in extra time when I know they're also counting down the minutes and the days. So 12 more days, you can do it. So we appreciate you and thank you very much. One last reminder, tomorrow, as was mentioned, tomorrow is a primary election, and if you have yet to see the 11 candidates that are running for the 5 positions, the BCTV, in conjunction with the League of Women's Voters, have the interviews for all 11 candidates on YouTube, and I highly recommend you take a look at it before voting tomorrow. Oh, and the student government, Wilson Student Government Candidate Forum is also on YouTube under Wilson's media. So I hope that we have informed voters tomorrow, and don't forget to get out and vote. All right, looking for a motion to adjourn?
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Meeting is adjourned.